Hi everybody. Today we're going to be doing an in-class review for Unit 4 on parallel and perpendicular lines. I've decided to cut 4.8 out of what we need to do. You're not missing anything from that. So you'll see 4.8 disappear from your list. You'll see it disappear from the grade book. And today we are just going to review parallel and perpendicular lines. Please remember that the Unit 4 test will open on Friday the 11th. And there will also be an additional review with the key and an accompanying video to help you. So today, let's talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. This is a MathLib that is posted to OMHS. The answers from this will tell you what to plug into that MathLib and make a silly little story. But what's really important is we understand how to answer the questions. So number 1 says the line passing through which 2 points is parallel to the line x minus 2y equals 16. So what's important here is we note that word parallel. Remember that we learned that if two lines are parallel, then they have the same slope. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to find the slope of our line, and then we're going to find which 2 points have the same slope as our line. Now, when we want to talk about the slope of a line, we really want our equation to be in the form y equals mx plus b. Right now, this is not in that form. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our equation and we're going to solve for y to get it in the form that we want. So I want to get y by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract x from both sides. That leaves me negative 2y on the left side and negative x plus 16 on the right. And if you wrote this 16 minus x, that's fine. But notice that it says mx plus b, so I want the x term to come first. And now to get that y by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is a positive 1. So I got 1y. Remember, there's this like hidden 1 here in front of the x. Negative 1 divided by negative 2 is a positive 1/2. 16 divided by negative 2 is a negative 8. So this equation in our slope-intercept form is y equals 1/2 x minus 8. So our slope is 1/2. So now what we need is we need to know which 2 points have a slope of a positive 1/2. Let me give myself some space. Okay. So you can do this one of 2 ways. You can use your slope equals rise over run, and you may graph the points and count the rise and the run. Or you can use the equation, which says the difference in your y values over the difference in your x values. Because I don't have a piece of graph paper here readily available, I'm going to use the equation. But if you want to use some graph paper and calculate the rise over run, be my guest. I'm going to calculate the slope for each one. So I'm going to call this the slope for point A, or for A. So this will be negative 5 minus negative 1 over 2 minus negative 6. Negative 5 minus negative 1 is the same as negative 5 plus 1, which is negative 4. 2 minus negative 6 is the same as 2 plus 6, that's 8. And you always want to reduce the fraction. Negative 4 over 8 is negative 1/2. You can use a calculator to do that, or you can do it by hand, whatever works best for you. We're looking for a slope of a positive 1/2. This is negative 1/2. So the answer is not A. So now we'll find the slope of B. Negative 9 minus negative 6, 2 minus negative 4. Negative 9 plus 6 is negative 3, 2 plus 4, 6, negative 1/2. Again, not a positive 1/2, so we don't want B. Find the slope of C. Negative 3 minus 7, 0 minus negative 5. Negative 3 minus 7 is negative 10. 0 plus 5 is 5. This is negative 2. It's not 1/2, so it's not C. So now we have to find the slope of D and E. It's got to be one of those two. So slope of D, 13 minus 5 all over 3 minus negative 1. 13 minus 5 is 8. 3 plus 1 is 4. This is a positive 2. Okay, so it must be E. Let's make sure. 8 minus 7, negative 2 minus negative 4. 1 over negative 2 plus 4 is a positive 1/2. That's the one we want. So our answer is E. Okay. All right, let's do number 2. Which line is perpendicular to the line passing through the points 4, 2, and 4, negative 4? All right, so the key word here is perpendicular. If we are looking at perpendicular lines, then we know that their slopes are opposite reciprocals. You may also hear this called negative reciprocals, or even that their slopes have a product of -1. It all means the same thing. So let's find the slope that goes between these 2 points. Again, I'm going to use the equation since I don't have a piece of graph paper right here in front of me. Remember, it's y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. -4 minus 2 is -6. 4 plus 4 is 8. This fraction can be reduced. -3/4. So the slope of this line is -3/4, which means the slope of the perpendicular line has to be the opposite reciprocal. Opposite meaning opposite sign. So this is negative, which means my reciprocal will be, or my opposite reciprocal will be positive. And then the reciprocal part says take whatever's in the denominator and the numerator and switch them. So I'm looking for a line that has a slope of 4/3. So none of my equations are in slope-intercept form. So we're going to have to take each one and put it into slope-intercept form. Remember that y equals mx plus b. So for A, we want to solve for y. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And then to get that y by itself, divide by 4. So this becomes y equals -3/4 x plus 4. You can divide each part here by the 4. -3x divided by 4 is -3/4 x. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So the slope here is -3/4. That is not perpendicular to these 2 points. It would actually be parallel. So it's not A. See how this works? Try B, C, D, and E and see which one you get with a slope of 4/3. Try that now. Okay, so for each one, B, C, D, and E, you want to put your equation in the form y equals mx plus b. That usually involves some sort of subtracting the x value to get it to the other side and dividing by the coefficient in front of the y. So for B, you should have gotten y equals 3/4 x minus 1. The slope is 3/4. That does not match 4/3. So the answer is not B. For C, y equals -4/3 x plus 5. The slope is -4/3. That's close, but it's not +4/3. So the answer is not C. D, y equals 4/3 x minus 3. The slope is 4/3. That's what we're looking for. So our answer is D. And if you did E just in case, just to be sure, y equals -3/4 x minus 1. The slope there was -3/4. That does not match 4/3. So the answer could not have been E. So the line that is perpendicular to a line that goes through these 2 points is 4x minus 3y equals 9. Notice that I didn't care what the y-intercept was. The y-intercept has nothing to do with the parallel or perpendicularness of the lines. All that matters is the slope. Let's try number 3. Write an equation of a line that passes through the point -1, 3, and is parallel to AB, with A at 3, -5, and B at -2, 15. So remember that when you are writing an equation of a line, the best place to start is slope-intercept form. There's other ways to write the lines, but the best place to start is slope-intercept. So we're looking at a y equals mx plus b. And notice that all of my answers are in that form also. So I have to have a slope. So let's at least calculate the slope. The slope of AB will be the difference in the y values divided by the difference in the x values. 15 minus -5 is 15 plus 5, it's 20. -2 minus 3 is -5. Reduce your fraction as much as you can, so our slope here is -4. I want a line that's parallel to AB, so that tells me that the slope of the line that I'm writing is -4. This will be the slope that I'm using. And then it has to go through this point. Well, I have a point, and now I have the slope. So let's look at point-slope form. Okay. If you need to reference your notes to look for point-slope form, that's fine, but please make sure that you know it before you take the test. So point-slope form for our equation is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1, where this y and this x aren't going to change. They are going to stay y and x the whole time. The y1 and the x1 are the x and y values from the point that are given to me. So this will be y minus 3 equals the slope times x minus the x value. So y minus 3 equals -4 times x plus 1. I'm going to distribute that -4 and then add 3 to both sides. Y equals -4x minus 1. So my answer over here must be A. If you have a different way to do this, perfectly fine. As long as you get the same answer I did, I'm perfectly fine with you doing it a different way if you've learned a different way in the past or you figured out a different way already. All right. Which pair of lines are parallel? If they're parallel, they have the same slope. So I'm looking for 2 lines with the same slope. Some of these are easy. If they're already in y equals form, you know the slope already. Remember, if there's no number in front of the x, then that slope is 1. All right, let's see. This one has the slope already. The ones that aren't in y-intercept form, we're going to have to solve. So let's look at A. So x minus 5y equals 10. I'm going to subtract an x from both sides. Oops. And divide both sides by -5. -1 divided by -5 is a positive 1/5. 10 divided by -5 is -2. So the slope here is 1/5. So if the slope here is 1/5 and the slope for this equation is 5, those don't have the same slope, so it's not A. Let's look at B. X plus y equals 0. We're going to subtract an x from both sides. Y equals -x, so its slope is -1. Well, if this one's slope is -1 and this one's slope is +1, those slopes are not the same. They're opposite reciprocals, so it's not B. C, we have to do it to both equations. 2x minus 3y equals 9. Subtract 2x from both sides and divide both sides by -3. -2 divided by -3 is positive 2/3. 9 divided by -3 is -3. All right, so 4y equals 6x minus 20. All I need to do is divide by 4 to get that y by itself. Y equals 6 divided by 4 is 3 over 2. That's really close. The slope here is 2/3 and the slope here is 3/2. They're reciprocals, but they're not opposite, so it's still not C. Let's look at D. 4x minus 8y equals 8. Subtract 4x from both sides. Divide both sides by -8. So the slope here is +1/2. The slope here was a +2. Can't be D. Oh, I hope it's E, or else I made a mistake somewhere. 9x minus 3y equals 12. Subtract 9x from both sides. Divide both sides by -3. -9 divided by -3, +3. 12 divided by -3, a -4. So the slope here is 3. The slope here was 3. Those are the same slope, so our answer is E. The line passing through which 2 points is perpendicular to the line 10x plus 2? So we are going to find the slope of the given line, take its opposite reciprocal, and then find which 2 points have the slope of the opposite reciprocal. So do that now. So as you worked through this, you should have solved for y in our equation and put it into the form y equals mx plus b. To do that, I subtracted 10x from both sides and then divided everything by 2. So the slope of the given line is -5. Because I'm looking for a perpendicular line, I want the opposite reciprocal slope. The opposite reciprocal of -5 is a +1/5. So I'm looking for the 2 points that have a slope of 1/5. As you work through these, you should have gotten C has a slope of a +1/5. Okay, let's look at 6. Write an equation of a line passing through the point, -6, -3, and is perpendicular to JK, with J at this point and K at this point. You're going to need a slope of JK. You're going to need to know the perpendicular slope once you find that. And then you can use your slope and a point to write the equation, very much like how we did the one with parallel lines. Go ahead and try that now. So when you found the slope for JK, you should have found its slope to be 3/2, 3 over 2. Because we were looking for a perpendicular line, we need the slope of the perpendicular line. So because the slope of JK is 3 over 2, it means the perpendicular slope is a -2 over 3. Take the opposite sign and flip your numerator and denominator. So once I knew that the slope was -2/3, I came over here to my answers and I knew that I could immediately eliminate C, D, and E because I need the slope to be a -2/3. So it was either A or B. So then I used point slope form that says you take y minus the y value equals the slope times x minus the x value. So I plugged in a -3 for y1 and a -6 for x1. Anywhere I see a minus and negative, I turn that into a plus. I distribute the 2/3, and then I subtracted 3 from both sides. So I got -2/3 x minus 7, so the answer is B. All right, number 7, which pair of lines are perpendicular? Perpendicular, of course, meaning they have opposite reciprocal slopes. So you have to look at their slopes. So for the ones that are already in y equals mx plus b, those are pretty easy to find the slope already. The ones that are not in that form, you'll have to rewrite so that you get them in the form y equals mx plus b. So try this one now. Okay, so as you went through these, you should have been looking for the slopes on each one. So in A, this first equation was not in slope-intercept form, but the second equation was, and so the slope of that second one is -2. When you rewrite the equation 8x minus 4y, you get y equals 2y minus 6. So its slope is 2. Those are not opposite reciprocals. They are opposites, but they're not reciprocals. So the answer is not A. In B, I'm going to have to rewrite the first equation. The second equation is in slope-intercept form with a slope of 3. When I rewrite that first equation, I get y equals 1/3 x minus 5. 1/3 is the reciprocal, but it is not the opposite reciprocal. So the answer is not B. In C, neither one is given to us in slope-intercept form. So when I rewrite the first equation, I get y equals 2/5 x minus 1. And the second equation got a little squished, but it says y equals 5/2 x minus 2. They are reciprocals, that is true, but they are not opposite reciprocals. So our answer is not C. They have to have different signs. One has to be positive, one has to be negative, and that's not true here. For D, we have x plus y equals 10. So I rewrite that, subtract x from both sides. The slope is -1. Remember, if there's not a number written there, there's an unwritten 1. And when I rewrite the second equation, I get x minus 3. There isn't a number written there in front of the x, which means there's an unwritten 1. So I have a slope of +1 and a slope of -1. These are opposite reciprocals. This is the weird one. Remember, I can always put a 1 in the denominator. So the reciprocal of 1 is still 1. So our answer is D. And if you wanted to double check E, you would rewrite that first equation and you would get y equals 5x minus 1. The slope is 5. And the second equation was already given to us in slope-intercept form. Its slope is +1/5. They are reciprocals, but they're not opposite reciprocals. They don't have different signs, so the answer is not E. So please be very careful with that 1. Remember, 1 can be written as 1/1. So when you switch your numerator and denominator, it's still 1. So 1 and -1 are indeed opposite reciprocals. All right, number 8. Write an equation of a line passing through the point 4, -9, and parallel to this line. So you want to make sure that you write your equation in slope-intercept form. Hopefully you're getting very good at that by this point. And then you'll know the slope. And once you know the slope, you also have a point, and you can use point-slope form. Try that now. So when you rewrite your equation, 3x minus 6y equals 30, you should get the equation y equals 1/2 x minus 6. The slope of this line is 1/2, and because I'm looking for a line parallel to it, I need it to have the same slope. So the slope we're using is 1/2. I'm then going to take my slope, and I'm going to use my point, and I'm going to use point-slope form. Y minus the y value equals the slope times x minus the x value. I rewrote y minus -9 as y plus 9 and distributed my 1/2 in the same step. If you needed to do that in 2 steps, that's perfectly fine. Then subtract 9 from both sides and you'll get your answer. As soon as I knew that that slope was 1/2, I came over here and immediately crossed off A, D, and E because I need the slope to be 1/2, and only B and C had a slope of 1/2. So that helps narrow it down, and then I was able to use point-slope form to come up with the correct answer. All right, number 9. Find the value of K so that a line passing through the points K -1 and -2, 8 is parallel to the equation. So as soon as I see the word parallel, I know that I'm thinking it has the same slope. So let's find the slope of this equation. 3x plus y equals -7. Subtract 3x from both sides. So our equation is y equals -3x minus 7. So the slope is -3. And because it's parallel, that's the slope that we're going to use. And now we want to find what could this value of k be so that these 2 points have a slope of -3? So we'll calculate slope y2 minus y1, all divided by x2 minus x1. I don't know x1, all I know is it's k. So I'm going to just plug in k. Well, I know that the slope has to be -3. So I'm going to replace this slope with a -3. 8 minus -1 is 9. And now all I have to do is solve for k. I'm going to multiply both sides by -2 minus k. I'll make these cancel out. So now I have -3 times -2 minus k equals 9. Distribute the -3. 6 plus 3k equals 9. Subtract 6 from both sides. Divide by 3. So k has to equal 1. Okay, so to recap what I did, I found the slope of the given equation. The slope was -3. Once I knew that slope, I wanted to use that slope because we're talking about a parallel line. And then I used the slope formula, substituting k for x1. Replace the slope with the slope that I know, -3. And I multiplied both sides by this denominator, just like we would have done in Algebra 1. Distribute the -3 and solve for k. And if that just seemed a little much for you, anytime you have the multiple choice, you could have always just checked all of these. You could have plugged in the 1 and the -5 and the -10 and just done this 5 times until you got an answer that has a slope of -3. That would have also worked out for you. The last one. Write an equation of a line passing through the point -4 and -11 and is perpendicular to this line. We've done quite a few problems like this so far today. Go ahead and try this one on your own. All right, so hopefully the steps that you followed, you first found the slope of the given equation. It was not in point slope or slope intercept form, so you had to rewrite it so that it was in y equals mx plus b. You get the slope of this line to be -4/5. Because we're looking for the perpendicular line, I need the perpendicular slope, the opposite reciprocal. Opposite of a negative is positive, and flip-flop your numbers. So the slope we're going to use is a positive 5/4. Now I have a slope, and they gave me a point. So I will take that slope and that point and use point-slope form. Y minus the y value equals the slope times x minus the x value. I took my minus and negatives and turned them into pluses. Distribute the 5/4, subtract 11, and you get y equals 5/4 x minus 6. Now, as soon as I knew that that slope was 5/4, I came over here and actually I knew right away that C, D, and E could not possibly be my answer because they do not have a slope of 5/4. But I still had to use that point slope method to figure out whether it was A or B. All right, so that concludes the review on parallel and perpendicular lines. This was the last class for Unit 4. We will be starting Unit 5 next class on Wednesday, and the Unit 4 test will open to you on Friday. Please make sure that you're reviewing. Please make sure that you're using the review that I provided to you on OMHS. Please make sure that you're doing the class content. If you need any additional help or extra support, please email me and we can try to set up a private Zoom meeting to help clarify any questions or reteach anything that you might need. Have a great day, guys.